Please give a warm welcome to directors Simon Curtis and Elizabeth McGovern.
Thank you so much. We're really thrilled to be here in this gorgeous cinema. That's as good as the film has ever looked. You're very lucky to have it here. I mean, to have the cinema here.
Yeah, well,
I'd love to chat, but I'm in floods of tears. We were just standing in the back. We've seen it about 20 times, but somehow here it just resonates in a different way.
well, and thank you, Simon and Elizabeth, for bringing so much laughter and tears to the movie theater. We've definitely missed it. 2 years. It feels so amazing to hear people laugh.
Yeah. I think that's part of why I'm moved at this moment, because we've been so isolated for so long. I've been watching movies on my iPhone, and I've just missed this so much, to sit and experience something with a group. You know, you're all sort of concentrating and not tweeting and things. Mind you, do tweet, but later.
Yeah, and laughing at the right moments, and it was just, me too. I was caught up emotionally, watching it a little bit again. Simon, I also watching the last half hour. I greatly admire the fact that there's not an easy scene in this movie. Within any particular scene, there's all these mini scenes that are happening. Can you tell us how was that challenging for you?
That's the thing. We used to say, the AD and I used to say, there's no such thing as an easy scene in this film, because on most films there'd be a line like they cut the cake and 2 or 3 people would turn up. But on this film, half of British Equity comes to rehearse. And or then like that scene I was just seeing at the end there, where they're having dinner in the dining room. It's a page and a half, but it's actually 4 mini scenes, each of which resolve a story, or Branson is hearing he's about to be a father, and each of them needs their own coverage. So that was very taxing, actually. However, they're the most extraordinary ensemble of actors, and it was a true honor for me to work with them.
And they've worked together for so many years, and here, I mean, you've known Elizabeth and you've known them throughout the years, but you never worked with them before.
I had, as a matter of fact. I'd worked with Maggie on David Copperfield for the BBC, right. And Hugh and Penelope and Michelle, and I'd worked with quite a lot of them. So that helped me a great deal entering the world of it as a sort of insider and an outsider. Mm-hmm. But the thing I really would reiterate is that they're a group of actors sort of randomly cast as a family 12, 13 years ago, who now truly are a family. Mm-hmm. And I think that does bounce off the screen.
Mm-hmm. Elizabeth, this is a Cora we've never seen before. She's more introspective. Can you tell us about your journey this time around?
Well, yeah, I think for me, the key to her in this particular story is that she's looking at her life and trying to sort of come to terms with what it's all added up to, because of the fact that she thinks it might soon be over. And for me, when it was such a special thing to play a character that, given that crossroads, can look at her life and make the choice to say, I've been happy. I think there's so much today, a feeling of anxiety and wanting more, being at a different party on Facebook or having a different thing. And to see someone who just, at the end of the day, I would have been miserable if I were her. She had no power whatsoever, really, in pretty much anything. And she's fitted into this other culture gracefully, but she just decides that it's been happy for her, and I feel inspired by that, actually.
So I love that you say that she decides, so she chooses to.
I think so. I think people do. To a certain degree, you make that choice, and then it becomes your truth.
Simon, I love the fact that film, which represents modern contemporary world basically disrupts the life that we know it in Downton. Can you tell us about the genesis of having the film crew come in?
Well, it's actually based on our producer Gareth Neam's grandfather's story. He was Ronald Neam, the great British director.
Alfred Hitchcock.
Stay with me. Well, exactly. He had been the assistant director on Hitchcock's 1929 film Blackmail, which actually was the film that shifted from silent to talkie during production. So that story was in Gareth's family history, and obviously influenced Julian in writing it. And I like the fact that, just like when we arrive at Highclere, we take it over, the film crew arrives and takes it over and behaves as film crew do.
And I should say, coincidentally, Ronald's, his dad directed The Prime of Miss Jim Brodie.
Gareth's. No, I think that was Ronald Neam, wasn't it?
Ronald, yeah.
Yeah.
Correct, yeah. And what was it like, you have a film crew, and then you have a film crew from the past, and...
Yeah, I mean, it was really complicated. I mean, I'd done a film within a film before when I did My Week with Marilyn. And that was a very helpful practice because it is tricky. And that dinner scene at the end when the servants are playing the extras, we were in this very confined space with our crew, the fake crew, the servants in all their dresses, the family turning up, the camera in this gigantic box. And we started the scene, and 3 days later, we finished it.
And I actually saw in the credits that you had Lorraine Potter, who was a silent film. Can you tell us?
She was incredibly helpful. I mean, telling us like the camera would have been so noisy, it had to be in a soundproof box. And so yeah, I mean, if you direct Downton Abbey, you're not short of experts telling you how to improve it all the time.
Yeah, actually, I love little details like you have a piano player.
Exactly. I didn't know that. When it was a silent film, to give the atmosphere, they played a live piano during the takes.
And Elizabeth, what was it like to be told we're going to the Riviera, we're going to the south of France? This was the first time that the family gets out of the England, correct?
Yeah, and you have to put it in the context of the fact that none of us had even left our house for a year and a half. So even that was exciting. But then to have the possibility of the Riviera dangled, and it was dangled because, of course, it was touch and go up until the very end, whether we'd actually be able to get permission to travel during COVID. So many of us were prepared to be dipping our toes into the freezing waters of Scotland or Wapping or wherever was going to substitute. So we were very, very pleased.
Yeah, and I couldn't help to notice the amazing costumes, the change in your wardrobe once you arrived to south of France, that she's wearing lighter colors, lighter outfits. Did that help?
Yeah, I mean, for me, and it wasn't something that I noticed particularly when I read the script, but I thought it was so beautifully, it reinforced the story so beautifully because the costumes get more relaxed and the atmosphere gets more relaxed and the light changes and emotions bubble up that might never have bubbled up back at the house. So Robert, these things sort of come out of him, and they have reflection on their marriage and their time together, which possibly could only have happened in the south of France. And I love the fact that it makes it a little bit less arbitrary that we're all traveling to another place, but it somehow reinforces the emotional arc of the story in a way that I didn't even really predict and just kind of noticed when I saw the film.
Simon, balancing giving people what they're expected to see in a Downton Abbey film, but at the same time you bring a freshness to it. Was that challenging, fun?
Yeah, I mean, you're very much aware you're taking on a very established brand, and people are telling you all the things like, we don't do close-ups on Downton Abbey, really. Or, you can't have the dog bark because the dogs were too well trained in those days, So, I mean, constantly sort of battling that kind of thing. And it appealed to me that both, as Elizabeth says, going to France and the film crew, there were new rules. So that gave me some freedom. But I suppose I try to do what I always do, is just give the actors as much confidence and freedom to do their best work and not be too bogged down in the rituals of the time, and just to behave like human beings in human situations.
And Elizabeth, fun working with Simon, your hubby?
It was, I like to joke about the fact that I hadn't seen him leave the couch in 27 years because that's all I ever see. And so not only was he directing and moving around and just sort of just orchestrating everything so masterfully. It was really good for the marriage, actually.
But it means she can't come home and slag off her director. Well, in fact, maybe she does, yeah.
That was the downside.
And Simon, the scene, which is lovely, between Hugh and Cora, which is a very emotional scene. You know, tell us from your vantage point, what was it like for you to direct that scene? Inevitably you end up doing it at 2 a.m. By the beach, but it was very. That storyline, for obvious reasons, meant a great deal to me, and Hugh and Elizabeth are two of my best friends. And two actors I hugely admire. So I really wanted it to be a surprisingly emotional scene, and I didn't really have to do anything. They just performed beautifully on the day. And Elizabeth, is it difficult for you to slip into Cora after all these years of performing? Is it difficult to slip right into?
No, I feel so privileged because as an actor, you always strive to get to this place where you're not thinking about anything. And 12 years or however many it's been, of practice has, I think, put us all into a place where we really don't have to think about it very much anymore. I mean, I was just worried about packing my inflatable rubber raft for the south of France. I mean, that was all the preparation I did. But you just know it's there. You've done the work already. These bonds that we've nurtured throughout the years are so there that it just takes care of so much, really.
But to be specific about Violet's final scene, because that was incredibly emotional on several levels, because obviously the characters are saying goodbye to the matriarch, and also the actors, the cast, are saying, they've had the honor of working with Maggie Smith for more than a decade, and this was going to be the last time. Then on top of that, round the bed, they all knew each other so well, so they knew that which actor had lost a parent or lost a partner. And I can't tell you how powerful a feeling that was.
Mm-hmm. I'm glad you brought up that scene because throughout the film, you pivot from humor to pathos within seconds. Is that?
Well, that's a gift from Julian. So when Mr. Carson hears that it's the end of Violet, and he's sitting at the table, and he quotes Shakespeare, and then he says that I can't bear that she's going to go when the house is full of film people, Mm-hmm. And that's a typical Julian thing to flip the moment on its head. And there was some talk of, should we cut that line because it is a laugh at that moment. I said, no, that's Downton Abbey for you. Be able to go back and forth to those things.
Mm-hmm. And for you, Elizabeth, pivoting from comedy to pathos, is just natural?
Oh yeah, an actor lives for that. I feel that if you're not both funny and sad, you're not telling the whole story, because that's what life is.
Exactly right.
Both. It's never just one.
Mm-hmm. And what was it like bringing both of you? What was it like bringing the new actors in, the new cast?
Well, I'll never forget the feeling of seeing them all on the set for the first time and just being literally high, because they just were so perfectly embodying their characters. It's working with a great director. That's the kind of thing that you do. You just cast it so well and then let them play. It was just, right from the start, they just they just hit the ground running, all of them.
And Dominic West described his first day at the dinner table sitting next to Maggie Smith as the greatest day of his life. You know, it was just you know,
Wow.
yeah.
And Simon, the film within the film takes place in 1875, and it's a silent film, but we're going back to the past. Can you tell us about that choice, which I love because
That was actually the costume designer's idea to
Really?
differentiate from. You know, so there was 2 different time periods, and I thought she might have regretted it at a certain point because those costumes were so big and complicated. But I think it was a good idea.
No, it's terrific because it reminds us of where Downton used to be and now where it's happening, and the blurring of the upstairs downstairs with the wedding of Lucy and Tom and them coming together. Was that can you tell us about staging the fact that we rarely see the upstairs and the downstairs together in
Well,
scenes?
isn't that one of the secrets? That's a secret sauce of Downton, isn't it? And I love that scene between Mr. Carson and Mary at the end when they embrace, and that's an echo to a similar scene, isn't it, in the first season? And I think that is what makes the show beloved. That
Particularly with the Tom character, because those of you who've seen the series will know that he started off downstairs. So it poses such an interesting relationship for Julian, because when the daughter, the upper-class daughter, dies, he's still their son-in-law, but he's not really their son-in-law, and he's a chauffeur. So that's a very interesting thing to negotiate going forward. And then when you see him remarry, then all that the idea is he aristocracy? Is he not? It's it just melds the 2 worlds once again.
And Simon, I think you alluded to this, but I want to come back to the fact that there are so many scenes within big scenes, but you seem to find the emotional beat in each scene as it progresses. Is that, having so many scenes within the scene, is it difficult to find the emotional beat and bring that forward?
Well, funny enough, I would define that as what a director does. And with this writing and this cast, there seemed to be the right way forward.
And tell us about the challenges of shooting in the south of France during COVID. Was that?
Well, I mean, the real worry was, as Elizabeth said, would we ever get there? So the studio did make us prep UK locations for all the French scenes in case we weren't able to travel. And there was a time I was in a very dingy part of a park, Ravenscourt Park in West London, but the producers convincing me this could work incredibly well for the swimming in the Mediterranean scene. And you just prayed that we would get there, and we got the green light to go to France 2 weeks before we went. And I'd never been to the location because there was a travel ban till we arrived. And
also, you hadn't seen it prior to shooting.
No.
It was the first time when you.
Yeah. And but then they said, the good news, bad news, we're going to France, but you've all got to quarantine for a beachside hotel in Juan-les-Pins for a week.
Oh.
And we were ecstatic, of course.
That must have been really difficult.
It was actually very surreal to be, going down and seeing Mr. Carson in his Speedos by the pool, and there was one night we arranged to screen for the cast and crew Truffaut's Day for Night, which is a beautiful film.
Natalie By.
Well, it's a love letter to being a film crew making a film in the south of France, and we were in our film crew in the south of France with Natalie By, who'd been the young woman in that, and now is in our film, and it was a very special feeling.
Were you conscious of that when you were casting Natalie, the Day for Night, the coincidence?
Well, I definitely wanted a great French actress, to equal Elizabeth and Penelope and Imelda and Maggie, the great actresses we already had in the film.
Mm-hmm. And I love your little nod to Imelda and Mr. Carson, who are married in real life, and you have that delicious little scene in the hat shop.
Yeah, but we get away with that because it works as a gag that they'd be mistaken for husband and wife, and that would embarrass Mr. Carson. But also, there's the other layer that they actually are husband and wife.
Plays better in England.
Oh, because they know it, yeah, because they know, familiar. So, and Elizabeth, how was it for you shooting that last scene with Maggie Smith?
Oh, it was, well, just as I said before, it's, once again, you don't have to work because it's all there. For me, the thing that triggered it was when she looks to her granddaughters and she says, "You've been great granddaughters." And I mean, I feel so proud of those two actresses who are my daughters, in my heart. And so the fact that someone on their deathbed has a chance to say that, to give that to the next generation, I found, especially now, after all we've been through, it just triggers an emotion of gratitude that is very easy to access.
And you've been asked this before, but is there going to be more?
Don't know.
Simon?
Don't ask me.
Well, it's doing extremely well at the theaters, so let's hope
So
that
far,
there
so
is
good.
more of you guys. Thank you so much for being here, and thank you
Thank you so much for having
bringing
us.
so much love and laughter.
Thank you very much. Appreciate you coming out on your Sunday morning.